Hey guys, Peter Bartamesher here with Asylum Studios, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about 5 mix mistakes that you're probably making all the time, and it's ruining your mixes, and your mixes would probably sound better if you didn't even touch them because you do these things so much. Don't worry, it's okay, because everyone's made these mistakes probably. It's not just you. I know I made a lot of really dumb mistakes when I first started. But this should help clarify some things. And after you watch this video, you'll have no excuse to keep making those mistakes. One of them I might as well just point out now. It's not actually one of the 5, but if you ever see this little red thing, well, I just clicked it away. But if this ever happens, hear that? See all that red? This means you're clipping, which means that there's an error in the binary code because you're overdriving your system. Don't ever, 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 ever clip. Unless it's on purpose and you actually know what you're doing. But in that case, if you actually know how to clip intentionally, you're probably not watching this video. Because even I don't really know how to do that effectively. Anyway, so let's get right into it. Before we do that, just don't forget to like the page on Facebook. All the links are in the description. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel so I can make longer videos. Check out some of the sounds on SoundCloud. A lot of it's free to download on Bandcamp. Feel free to follow us on Twitter at the Asylum Studio. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about mixing. First thing you're probably doing wrong is boosting everything in your EQ. Just to give you an example, I hear this all the time, and I used to do it too. Just people start boosting stuff. You use a preset maybe, and the preset boosts the high end, and then you go, oh, well, there's not enough low end. So you boost the low end. You go, oh, you feel like the mids are kind of gone. So you boost the mids, and you're like, oh, I could use a little bit more sparkle. And you boost the high end, and you go, oh, man, I could use a little bit more lows. And it's really just a horrible, horrible thing. When you start boosting stuff on an EQ, it's like inevitably going to make it worse. Hold on, I'm just going to take a drink right now. Got all those screwdrivers. Anyway, so that's one. Here's an example of what that might sound like. This is about the progression. That's actually 2. Here we go. Cool. Here's what I mean. Alright, so maybe you're not going that far with it, but that's kind of how it ends up. It's probably your EQs probably look something like this, and it's just, maybe not this bad, but, it look pretty dumb, and that's because you're just boosting everything, because louder sounds better. Don't ever forget that. Everything that's louder sounds better. Which brings me, I won't go to that next point, but always gain stage. Look that up. I'll probably do a video on it, but always gain stage, because everything that's louder sounds better, and you're probably making mistakes. The next thing you're probably doing wrong is EQing out of context. When you EQ something, before you finish EQing it, you might want to check it in the mix. I've seen people take off 2K on a lot of things, and they stop coming through. They stop popping through. If you start chopping off 2K, which is a pretty harsh frequency, by the way, around 2,000 cycles, maybe 1.5 to 3,000 cycles is going to start. It sounds a little harsh. That's kind of natural, but some people will start inevitably taking it off. But then all of a sudden you realize that nothing's cutting through. Maybe it's okay to take it off an acoustic guitar if you want it to sound smooth. Or maybe, if your overhead's in a ballad, you want to sound kind of soft, you might want to take that off. But if you got a lead vocal that you want to cut through, a really cluttered, like kind of pop electronic song or something, and you want that vocal to cut through, maybe you don't want to cut 2K, because 2K is a very sensitive frequency, and it's very helpful if you want something to cut through. So always EQ in context. If you want your snare drum to pop through, if you want to hear how your snare drum's going to sound, EQ that in the context of the song. Make sure what you're doing works. It may sound good on its own, but once stuff starts getting masked, yeah, it's kind of hard. If you think you have enough low end on your snare and you start, cutting it, and then you listen to it in the context of the song and it's got no body to it, that's because you didn't have enough low end. It sounded like you did when you were EQing it, but, once the bass guitar came in, the piano, the kick drum, and, maybe a synth and, strings, all the guitars, the lead vocal, everything's kind of distracting. All of a sudden it has a lot of low end to it. All of a sudden your snare drum doesn't have any body to it. So always EQ in the context of your mix, or at least finish your EQing in the context of your mix. That's very important. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3, compressing without listening. I'm going to make this really quick. Just go to my other video, one of the other videos on my channel. I think it's called how to understand and listen for compression or something like that. And it teaches you how to actually start practicing listening for compression. If you're just putting on compression because you feel like it's an obligation that you have to compress stuff, if you've learned enough that that compression is a thing, but you don't really know how to use it, you know what all the parameters do, but you're just like, whatever, compression, compression is that thing you put on stuff, and it makes stuff loud, and you don't know what you're doing. Figure it out. A lot of people say, if you don't know how to compress, don't compress. That's bullshit. How the hell are you going to get good at compressing if you don't compress? But make sure you're paying attention. Don't just get excited to get to the end of your mix so you can put L2 on it or ozone and just smash everything and make it all loud, because then it's going to sound like crap. You have to compress it individually. Compress your kick drum, compress your snare drum, compress your overheads, compress your guitars, compress your acoustic guitars, compress your bass, compress your strings, compress your vocals, and then send them to aux buses, compress those buses. It's a series of compression before you get to that master L2, which you probably shouldn't be using anyway because you're not a mastering engineer. And if you didn't know that you had to compress everything individually, if you don't know what a sub bus is, you should not be fucking at all with a master fader. Anyway, compress and listen to what you're doing. Think about how the parameters are affecting the signal. Experiment, exaggerate things, and then dial them back. Anyway, let's move on to the next thing. Fixing fixes. This is something I see a lot of people do. You get a track that sounds okay, and then you just start piling plugins on it and just start fixing what you thought were fixes. So you take, an acoustic guitar and you go, I just got this new saturator, it's really cool, I'm going to try it out. And you put the saturator on. The saturator takes off a lot of the low end and distorts the high end, and then you go, the low end's gone. So whatever, you put R bass on it or something, or you boost it in your EQ, and then you go, it's got a lot of low end. So then you start, scooping stuff, or you start compressing it. You could put a, multi-band compressor on it, and you put another compressor on it. You start using all these plugins you don't have to use. And by the end of the chain, your instrument sounds terrible. It sounds not only heavily processed, but poorly processed as well. So you just keep fixing things. It's silly. You should really only have, the maximum amount of EQs you should really have on one track is 2. One in the beginning maybe, and then one at the end, just to touch some stuff up. Or maybe, do a high pass at the end. Also don't high pass things to death, but, if you take out bass, leave the bass out. You took it out for a reason. If you high passed your bass guitar, and then by the time you're done compressing it and saturating it, and if you have a parallel chain or something, whatever, by the time you're done playing with that bass, if you don't think it has enough low end anymore, don't add more low end. Go back to the original EQ and chill out that high pass filter a bit. Ease up on it, okay? You're probably taking out some of the fundamental harmonics, and ruining the low end of your bass. Okay, and then this is the last thing. This is just a huge deal. It's nothing really that specific, but it's the old, I made a change, so it's good. I like to call it the Nixon conundrum. I think Nixon said something along the lines of once, if the president does it, it's not illegal. And I translate that into, if the mix engineer does it, it sounds good. And that's not a good, make sure you A-B everything. By A-B, I mean bypass or go back and forth between things with your eyes closed or something. Something I do, and it sounds really stupid, but if I want to see if this EQ, I'm joking. This EQ sounds good. I'll probably play the track, and I'll probably close my eyes, hit the bypass button a million times over and over again, and then I have no idea whether it's bypass or unbypassed. I'll close my eyes, I'll play the track, and I'll slowly switch between A and B. I don't know whether A is bypassed or B is bypassed, but all I know is one of them is bypassed, and then I see which one I like better. Open my eyes, and whichever one I chose, I'll stick with that. Because you spent an hour mixing your kick drum does not mean your kick drum sounds better. Your kick drum might sound much, much worse because you just spent an hour listening to boom, 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 over and over and over again, and your ears have no idea what you're doing. You know what you're probably doing? You're probably not listening in the context of the mix. It's important to take breaks, to A-B back and forth between your mix, check a reference mix, listen to some real fucking music that's been mixed by professionals, and then go back and mix your stuff. Just don't get discouraged that your stuff doesn't sound like CLA. It's not going to yet. But you have to start taking these steps in order to get there. Just because you made a change doesn't mean that it was a good idea. You have probably been only doing this for maybe 6 months or a year, maybe 2 years maximum. You probably don't know a lot. I don't know a lot. And I know that, which is why my mixes sound pretty good, because I know I don't know everything. I know that everything I do is deliberate. I know why I'm doing things. And sometimes I might just play around, and if it sounds good, it sounds good. But I don't just go arbitrarily playing with plugins because if I don't know what they're doing. It took me a while to get good at compression. It took me a while to get good at EQ. It took me a while to get good at reverb, delay, saturation, mastering. Things like this take a little bit of time. You have to understand that. Anyway, that's about it for today. I'm going to cut it short. I could do tons more of these videos if you guys want. Just post. I have a million things that I used to fuck up on that I hear people asking questions about all the time that I'd be happy to do more. Tell you what you're doing wrong. Feel free to send me any questions or comments. Feel free to post recommendations for videos. I'd love to help you guys out. If you want to send me a mix here and there, ask for some feedback, I'd be happy to give it to you. Don't forget to like the page on Facebook. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You know the drill. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you later.